My parents told me I was a useless failure and threw me out. My father pointed at the door and said, "Go live in the streets if you have to. Maybe that will wake you up." My mother stood beside him like this was some kind of tough love intervention. My sister Lily, the golden child corporate lawyer, sat on the couch with a glass of wine and smiled like she had been waiting years to watch me collapse. I did not argue. I did not tell them I owned 3 companies. I did not tell them I had bought my penthouse in cash. I did not tell them I could buy their house 3 times over without touching my savings. I just picked up my jacket and said, "All right. If that's what you want." Then I walked out into the rain. 3 weeks later, they were telling everyone I was homeless. 6 months later, I owned the investment that ruined them. My name is Adrian Cole. I was 32 when this happened, and the first thing you should know is that money does not magically protect you from family drama. It only changes the size of the table where people try to disrespect you. I started working when I was 18. Technically, I was supposed to be in college. That was the family plan. 4-year degree, respectable job, office parking pass, a LinkedIn profile my mother could show her friends, and a slow climb toward whatever version of success my parents understood. I lasted 1 semester. Not because I was lazy. Not because I was stupid. Because I realized I was sitting in lecture halls learning theories about business while quietly building one from my bedroom. It started with a niche e-commerce store. Nothing impressive at first. Specialty desk accessories, imported parts, small batch office tools, things people did not know they wanted until the right ad put it in front of them at midnight. I learned everything the hard way. Suppliers. Shipping delays. Customer complaints. Ad spend. Refunds. Chargebacks. Inventory mistakes. Email marketing. Cash flow. All the ugly little details people skip when they tell success stories later. At 18, I was sleeping 4 hours a night, packing orders on my bedroom floor, and making more money in a month than most college students made in a semester. My parents saw none of that. What they saw was their son dropping out. My mother, Claire, told me I was making the dumbest mistake of my life while stirring coffee like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "You'll never amount to anything without a degree," she said. My father, Martin, grunted in agreement. That was his usual way of dismissing anything he did not care enough to understand. My older sister Lily did not even try to hide her amusement. Lily was everything they valued. Corporate lawyer. Perfect grades, perfect internships. Perfect suits, perfect LinkedIn profile. Luxury handbags lined up in her closet like trophies from battles she had mostly fought with other people's money. She was polished, cold, and confident in the way people become when everyone around them has spent their entire life applauding. My parents called her disciplined. I called her expensive. Not out loud. Not then. At family dinners, Lily was the success story. I was the cautionary tale. My father would lean back in his chair and ask, "Still doing that little internet thing?" Then he would chuckle, like my business was a hobby I would eventually outgrow, right after comic books and late-night fast food. Lily would smile politely and say, "You know, Adrian, it's never too late to get a real job." My mother would sigh and add, "We just worry about you." That was how they wrapped insults in concern. For years, I let it slide. Not because it did not bother me. Because I was busy, building a business from nothing takes everything you have. While they were laughing at that little internet thing, I was negotiating supplier contracts at 2 in the morning, testing ad campaigns before sunrise, learning how to hire people, fire people, read balance sheets, survive bad quarters, and turn one online store into 3 brands. By 24, I had a small warehouse. By 26, I had employees. By 27, I bought my first house in cash. By 29, I sold one of the brands for more money than my parents had earned in a decade. By 30, I owned a modern penthouse overlooking the city, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a home office that looked like something my father would have called pretentious if he knew it existed. He did not. None of them did. I did not hide my success because I was ashamed. I hid it because at a certain point, proving yourself to people who need you to be a failure becomes a waste of a perfectly good life. When people need you to be small, proof only makes them angrier. So I let them believe what they wanted. I drove an understated black sedan to family dinners. I wore normal clothes. I did not talk about revenue, acquisitions, investments, or the fact that I had more liquid cash than Lily had student loans. I smiled through the jokes. Ate the overcooked roast. Listened to Lily talk about cases she could not fully explain but somehow always made sound important. Then I went home to the life they assumed I did not have. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening. My mother texted me and said she needed help with something at the house. That was normal. For all their judgment, my parents had no problem calling me when they needed furniture moved, tech fixed, boxes carried, gutters checked, or heavy things lifted. I drove over after work. When I walked in, I knew immediately that it was not about fixing anything. My father was pacing in the living room. My mother stood by the fireplace with her arms crossed. Lily sat on the couch with a glass of wine, looking far too pleased with herself. I should have left right then. Instead, I stood near the doorway and waited. My father stopped pacing. Adrian, he said, we've been talking. Beautiful opening, nothing good ever follows that sentence. He continued, you're 32 years old, and it's clear this online nonsense isn't going anywhere. You've had enough time to figure your life out, but you're still wasting your potential. I felt my jaw tighten. What exactly are you getting at? My mother stepped in. We've decided it's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet for real. That confused me enough that I almost laughed. I've been standing on my own feet since I was 18. Lily let out a short laugh. Oh, come on. Adrian. You've been coasting for years. You think anyone believes you're making a living off your little business? I looked at her. My little business. She smiled. It's sad. Honestly. My father's voice rose. We can't keep enabling you. That one actually made me blink. Enabling me? I have never asked you for money. Not once. My mother shook her head like I was being difficult. No more coming here when you need help. No more expecting us to bail you out. I don't need you to bail me out. My father pointed toward the door. If you're doing so fine, then you can prove it by surviving without our help at all. In fact, you can leave now. Go live in the streets if you have to. Maybe that will wake you up. The room went quiet. Rain hit the windows hard enough to fill the silence. My mother looked satisfied, like this was the dramatic moment where I was supposed to break down. Lily lifted her wine glass and took a tiny sip, trying to hide a smile and failing. They thought they had cornered me. They thought I would beg. Maybe apologize. Maybe promise to go back to school. Get a real job. Become someone they could understand. They had no idea I could have bought the house we were standing in, demolished it, rebuilt it twice as large, and still slept fine that night. I picked up my jacket from the chair. All right, I said softly. If that's what you want. My mother opened her mouth, probably to add one more inspirational insult. I did not give her the chance. I walked out. Got into my car. Drove away in the rain. In the rearview mirror, I caught my own reflection. I was not angry. Not exactly. I was almost amused. Because they had just made a decision they did not understand. The first week after they threw me out was strangely quiet. No calls. No texts. No apology. No follow-up. Some part of me expected at least one message. Not because I needed it, but because even people who kick you out sometimes check if you landed somewhere. Nothing. It was like I had been erased from the family roster entirely. I spent those days working from my home office, which was on the 32nd floor of a glass tower downtown. My desk faced the skyline. My assistant sent me reports every morning. My teams handled daily operations across 3 companies. My calendar was packed with investor calls, vendor meetings, acquisition reviews, and a Southeast Asia expansion proposal I had been putting off for months. I was not living in the streets. I was approving a 7-figure logistics upgrade while drinking espresso in a penthouse my parents did not know existed. By the second week, the rumors started reaching me. Not directly. Through people, a family friend sent a vague message asking if I was doing okay. An old high school acquaintance liked 3 of my old posts in a row, then messaged me. Heard things got rough. Keep your head up. Then my cousin Jacob texted. Jacob was one of the few relatives who had always treated me like a person instead of a role. Hey man, he wrote, I overheard something tonight. You okay? I replied, define okay. He wrote, your mom was telling people at dinner that you're basically homeless. She said you'll probably come crawling back soon. I stared at the message. Then another came in. Also, Lily joked about maybe letting you do odd jobs for her firm when you're desperate enough. She said you'd look good fetching coffee. I read that twice. It did not surprise me. That was the problem. It was exactly who they had always been. They were not just wrong about me. They were enjoying being wrong. They were building a story where I was the failure. They were the tough love heroes, and Lily remained the shining proof that their values were correct. I decided not to correct them. Not yet. Every lie they told was one more brick in the wall that would eventually fall on them. The third week, my mother called. Not to apologize. Not to check on me. To ask for a favor. Adrian, darling, she said, tone light and condescending, your father and I need help moving some old furniture next weekend. Since you've got nothing else going on, you should have the time. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. Sorry, I said, I'm busy. With what? Work. There was a pause. Then a small knowing laugh. Of course. Your business. Well. Try to make time for family, okay? You might need us someday. That was when I realized just how deep their fantasy went. They genuinely believed they were the safety net I would eventually fall into when life crushed me. They could not imagine that I had built a life so far beyond their approval that their safety net looked like a napkin from where I stood. I almost told her then. Almost. But the timing was not right. So I said, I'll let you know. Then I hung up. The fourth week, things changed. I woke up to an email from my bank. Subject: unusual account activity. Immediate attention required. At first, I thought it was phishing. Then I logged into the official app. 2 large withdrawals had been made from an old savings account. A little over $7,000 each. The account was barely used anymore. It was originally a custodial savings account my parents had opened when I was a teenager. When I turned 18, I had full access, but my mother remained an authorized signer. I had meant to close it years ago. I forgot. That mistake cost me $14,000 and the last remaining thread of loyalty I had for them. Both withdrawals were in-person transactions from a branch 2 blocks from my parents' house. I called the bank. The teller remembered the transactions clearly. My mother had come in, said I had authorized her to access the funds for a family emergency, and walked out with cashier's checks. My hands went cold. Not because of the amount. $14,000 was not going to affect my life. It was the entitlement. The casual theft. The assumption that if money existed near me, it belonged to whoever in the family had a better excuse. I called Jacob. "You're not going to believe this," I said. I explained everything. There was a long pause. Then he said, "Adrian, I think I know where the money went." "Where?" "Lily just put a down payment on a new luxury SUV. She was bragging about how it was a gift from the family for all the hard work she does." The words hit like ice water. They had stolen from me to reward her. The golden child got a luxury SUV. The family failure got robbed. That night, I drove to my parents' house. I did not go inside. I parked across the street and watched through the front windows. Inside, Lily was holding up a set of car keys while my mother took a picture. My father was laughing, clapping her on the shoulder like she had just won an award. I sat there in the dark and felt something inside me snap cleanly. Not loudly. Not dramatically, just a final, quiet separation. The next day, my mother texted, "Hope you're not upset about the savings account. It was just sitting there, and your sister needed help. You'll make more money someday. Family comes first." No apology. No embarrassment. No acknowledgement that taking my money without permission was theft. Just a smug little explanation wrapped in the word family. I did not reply. There was nothing left to say. That was the moment I stopped wanting them to understand me. I wanted them to understand consequences. I called my attorney first. Then my private banking contact. Then my accountant. By the end of the week, every loose financial connection to my family was sealed. The old account was closed. My mother's access was removed from anything tied to me. Passwords changed. Beneficiaries updated. Emergency contacts updated. Property records reviewed. Asset structures checked. Business accounts secured. I had my attorney send a formal repayment demand documenting the withdrawals in her text. I did not press charges immediately. Not because she did not deserve it, but because I wanted every move from that point forward to be strategic, not emotional. Then I hired a licensed due diligence consultant. Everything legal. Public filings. Property records. Business registries. Court records. Corporate disclosures. Debt-related documents that could be obtained properly. I wanted a full picture of my family's financial situation. Not because I needed to steal their secrets. Because I suspected their image of success was thinner than it looked. I was right. My parents' retirement savings were weaker than they pretended. Their house still carried debt. The vacation property they bragged about was more liability than asset. Lily's situation was worse. High-interest credit cards. Luxury lease payments. A second mortgage on her condo. Private school donations to impress people who did not care. The SUV she had just earned was not a reward. It was a decoration on a sinking ship. Then the consultant found the detail that changed everything. My father had personally guaranteed a loan tied to a small property development company. A block of partially developed townhomes on the edge of the city. The project had run behind schedule. Costs were up, pre-sales were weak, the developer was bleeding money. If the company defaulted, my father would be exposed personally for a large amount. 6 figures. Maybe more depending on how the bank enforced it. I sat at my desk looking at the report for a long time. The man who told me to live in the streets had bet more than he could afford on a block of unfinished houses. And he was about to lose. That was when the plan formed. Not revenge in the childish sense. Not vandalism. Not shouting. Not humiliating them with screenshots online. Something cleaner. Let them walk into the consequences they had already built. Then be standing on the other side when they arrived. Over the next few months, I moved quietly. I greenlit 2 expansion projects I had been delaying, one in Europe and one in Southeast Asia. Not for them. For me. But I would be lying if I said I did not enjoy the timing. I started attending higher-level investor dinners again, tech summits, charity galas, private founder events. Rooms my family would never be invited into, filled with people who understood what my companies were worth without needing me to explain that online business was real business. I did not post about it. I did not brag. I just made sure my name started moving through circles where, eventually, it would reach them through someone else's mouth. By mid-year, A software startup I had invested in sold for 8 figures. My cut alone could have bought half of my parents' neighborhood outright. Around the same time, I met a national business magazine editor over coffee in Manhattan. She was working on a feature about self-made entrepreneurs who had been underestimated early in life. The irony was so sharp it almost cut the table. She wanted me as the centerpiece. I agreed. On one condition. The release date needed to align with a specific month. The same month my father's development project was projected to collapse. She did not need to know why. She just smiled and said, "We can make that work." Then the distressed asset opportunity arrived. A real estate investment firm I had worked with before contacted me. They were acquiring distressed assets from smaller developers and needed capital from trusted investors. They sent me the portfolio. There it was, the partially developed townhome block tied to my father's failed investment. Highlighted red. High risk, heavy debt. Potential upside if acquired cheap and managed properly. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because sometimes life hands you symmetry so perfect you have to check if someone is writing it. I did not commit immediately. I reviewed the contracts. Asked questions. Had my attorneys examine every line. If I was going to do this, it would be clean. No shortcuts. No hidden conflict. No illegal pressure. No direct deal with my father. Just a distressed asset acquisition through a legitimate investment firm after default. The kind of thing I did all the time. Only this time, the asset had my father's arrogance attached to it. The magazine feature came out on the first Monday of the month. My face was on the cover. Polished suit. City skyline behind me. Headline in bold. From doubt to dominance. The self-made founder who proved everyone wrong. The article did not name my family. It did not need to. It talked about dropping out at 18. Being dismissed by people close to me. Building brands quietly. Selling companies. Scaling globally. Investing early in software. Tens of millions in net worth. Within hours, the article was everywhere. LinkedIn. Business newsletters. Industry groups. Old friends. People I had not spoken to in 10 years suddenly remembered they had always believed in me. Then my mother texted, "Adrian, we saw the magazine. We had no idea things had gotten this big for you. We're proud of you." Proud. After years of mockery. After telling people I was homeless. After stealing from my account. Now they were proud. I stared at the message for a while. Then I deleted it. Proud was just greed wearing better clothes. 2 weeks later, my father's development company defaulted. The bank moved fast. The investment firm moved faster. My capital gave me controlling ownership of the entire project at a steep discount. On paper, it was a smart acquisition. In reality, the man who told me to live in the streets had just lost the block. I bought it. 3 days later, I had my assistant arrange a dinner with my parents and Lily at a high-end restaurant downtown. The invitation was vague. A business opportunity. Given their sudden change in tone after the magazine feature, they accepted immediately. When they arrived, they were all smiles. My mother hugged me for the first time in years. My father shook my hand like we were equals. Lily complimented my suit with a voice so polite it barely sounded like hers. We ordered dinner. They made small talk. My mother asked about my companies with wide eyes, as if she had discovered a new word. My father talked about how proud he was that I had finally found my direction. Lily laughed too hard at one of my jokes. It was fascinating. The same people who had thrown me out now sat across from me, trying to position themselves near success they had spent years denying existed. Halfway through the main course, I slid a folder across the table. My father opened it first. His smile faltered. Inside were the ownership documents for the development project. The default timeline. The acquisition paperwork. The proof that I now controlled the asset he had lost. His face drained slowly. "This," he said. "This is our property." I took a sip of water. "Correction. It was your property. It's mine now." My mother looked from him to me. "Adrian, how could you?" That almost got a laugh out of me. How could I? I leaned forward slightly. "The same way you walked into my bank account and took my money without permission. Except I did mine legally." Lily's jaw tightened. "You did all this just to prove you're better than us?" I looked at her. "No. I did this because you spent years pretending I was beneath you." Nobody spoke. I continued, calm and clear. "Your company defaulted. The bank offloaded the project. I bought it through an investment firm at a fair distressed price. No lies. No theft. No family emergency. Just business." My father stared at the papers. For the first time in my life, he looked small to me. Not physically. Something worse. Small in presence. Small in authority. Small in the exact place where he had always tried to seem large. I said, "The difference between us is that I did not have to steal to win." My mother's eyes filled with tears. I felt nothing. That surprised me a little, but only a little. She whispered, "We're still family." "No," I said. Family does not tell people I'm homeless for entertainment. Family does not steal from an account and hand the money to Lily. Family does not show up proud, only after a magazine tells them I'm worth respecting. Lily looked away. Good. I placed my napkin on the table. Oh, and don't worry about the staff at the development site. I've already told them the change in ownership will not affect their jobs. I looked at my father. Just yours. Then I stood, paid the bill, and walked out. The fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days later, Jacob called. Your parents are losing it, he said. Your dad hasn't left the house in 2 days. Your mom is calling around trying to spin it, but everyone already knows you own the development. Of course they did, people love a twist. And this one was too good to stay quiet. My father's failed investment was no longer just a private embarrassment. It was public in their social circle. The same people they used to impress at dinners now whispered about how their so-called reckless son had outmaneuvered them in business. I did not have to tell anyone. The story carried itself. Lily's image cracked too. Without my parents covering emergencies, the SUV became impossible to maintain. She downgraded to something modest, which would not have mattered to any normal person but mattered deeply to someone who had built her entire personality around looking expensive. A few months later, she put her condo up for sale. My parents sold their vacation property. The Sunday dinners became less regular. Then stopped. My mother texted once. Can we talk? We're still family. I ignored it. My father left a voicemail. We need to find a way forward. You can't just cut us off like this. I deleted it before he finished speaking. I had not cut them off out of anger. I had simply recognized there was nothing left to salvage. They had mocked me, lied about me, stolen from me, celebrated my supposed downfall, then tried to stand near my success once it became public enough to benefit them. That was not family. That was access. And access can be revoked. The development project became profitable within the year. The townhomes sold faster than projected. The margins were better than expected after we cleaned up the mismanagement. Families moved in. Kids rode bikes on newly paved streets. Lights came on in windows at night. Sometimes I drove past the completed site. Not often. Just enough. It was mine now. Built from their arrogance and my patience. The last time I heard from my mother was an email. Subject line. You've changed. That was all it said. I read it twice. Then closed my laptop. She was wrong. I had not changed. I had simply stopped playing the role they wrote for me. And that was the real victory. Not the money. Not the property. Not the look on my father's face in that restaurant. The real victory was knowing they finally understood I did not need their approval, their permission, their version of success, or their story about who I was supposed to be. They told me to live in the streets because they thought I had nowhere else to go. They called me a failure because my success did not look like Lily's. They stole from me because they thought my money mattered less than her image. They lied about me because it made them feel righteous. But I was never the failure. I was just the one who stopped explaining himself. And when the truth finally came out, I did not need to shout. I simply owned what they lost. I walked out onto my penthouse balcony that night and looked down at the city lights. Somewhere below, people were going home, locking doors, cooking dinner, living ordinary lives inside homes built on land my father once thought would save him. I smiled to myself. Just once. For my own satisfaction. Then I said it out loud. They told me to live in the streets. I looked toward the development glowing in the distance. So I bought the whole block. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.